everyone. Now, reaction videos I haven't really done all that often. I've done a few before, but I've been watching Brennan Mejia's YouTube channel. He's been going through, his life as a Power Ranger, his thoughts on the series. He's a big fan of the show. And one of his recent videos of him unboxing one of his suits from the actual TV show. So I thought it would be really cool to showcase his video and talk about the suits.
Hey guys, Brennan Mejia here, the Red Ranger from Power Rangers Dino Charge.
That's what I always really like about Brennan's channel. He's always really funny. He always throws in little things. And I like that he's also a down-to-earth fan of the series. It gives that little extra bit to what they do in their performance. So I always enjoy them like that.
The current owners of Power Rangers actually did an auction where they sold off a bunch of Power Rangers suits and other items from the show. So in these boxes are the Dino Supercharged suit, and I won it. So I'm super excited to open.
Now, I always found this as stupid. How Power Rangers does all the suits is they have multiple copies of the suits for various reasons. For one reason, they have to redo the suits because, they have different stunt people, so they can't just take over the Japanese suits from Japan and reuse them over here. The second main reason is, while the Super Sentai suits look really good on camera, they have that nice shine and stuff, it looks more cooler, it rips a lot more easier. So when they redo the suits, they use a tougher material. It doesn't look as shiny, and sometimes the colors mismatch, like Samurai Gold and Mercury Ranger. They really look bad. There's so many different versions of the suits and so many copies. I always thought it was ridiculous that the actors never got a copy of their suits. It feels stupid that the production, these people worked on the show really hard, they should give them one of their suits. It's not going to be a real big deal, especially for example, the US exclusive cockpit suits. When are they ever going to reuse them? They're always just in those things for 1-2 years, and that's it, and they move on. I know they can kick bash the parts, but honestly, every Ranger should be given one of their copies of their suits. Now, I understand that in some cases, they may have to return certain things back to Japan, and that could be the reason why. But in most cases, they redo a lot of the suits specifically for us. They have a whole bunch of copies, and the actors really should be getting their own suits as a thank you.
I did bid on other items as well from Dino Charge. I tried to win my hero suit. That's the non-supercharged version, but that one went for like $7 or $8 grand, and I was not going to pay that much.
I always kind of found it odd that the original Dino Charge suit went for more money versus the, the supercharged suit, which is Carnival mode in Kyoryuger. Me personally, I would actually like the Carnival suit more so than the original base suit because it's kind of a more common suit.
Even though I didn't wear this one, it's like it was used in Dino Charge though, or Dino Supercharged, I mean. So it's still screen used, even if it wasn't Brennan used on screen, you know what I mean? Let's start with this one before we open the rest of it.
Now, another thing that the suits run into is that they do deteriorate over time. Some of the parts will wear out more easier than others, so eventually production couldn't even use them. Even it makes it more foolish when they don't offer the suits to the actors because in most cases they'll just be wasted and thrown out because they just won't be usable anymore.
So this is Rio, so it's seen better days for the cufflink.
Whenever you see armor put on top of the suits, in most cases it's sprayed on it's foam-like material, and then as they fight and do all the stunts, it wears out, so they have to do a lot of touch-ups. So as they get to the end of production, they usually don't really touch them up. So if you ever watch when, for example, I think in some recent Kamen Rider seasons, they had a lot of the older suits and you could see it on screen where it was not repaired and they didn't want to make a new suit because either they were just on screen for a short amount of time. So that's the reason why these things happen. It's just that normally whenever in normal production, things would flake off and they would have to reapply the paint to fix them or have to do new versions of the costumes.
This one says wire. Okay.
Now in this case, why it says wire is that to make it easier for production, they would pick one of the duplicate suits and be like, okay, we're going to use this one for wire work, meaning, the guys they get hoisted up in the air, they fly backwards, they're in front of explosions, and now these suits are going to be really worn out. Now, you don't want the worn out suit to be in front of the camera. That's the hero costume you want, the one that has the least amount of damage. So they, identify them with stickers so that, oh, this was the wire suit. Don't grab this one for when we have to use close-ups. That's why they identify them.
They use it for wire work specifically? Just this one, not the other one?
Another thing that's telling me is that when they were assembling these auctions, they were rushing, and that's what caused the mismatch. Because they are identical, but in this case, you got the wire work version that has more damage dealt to it. compared to a hero version.
And then we have the belt. Okay, this belt, I'm hoping it fits because the current belt that I have in my Dino Charge suit is the actual toy. Let me actually see, just out of curiosity, if this fits at all.
I also like how we can actually see that the suit parts are not like perfectly made. There are shortcuts that they put here and there. If you can look in the back, the way they put the color around the rubber elastic strap, it's kind of just like done by hand. So you can see how imperfections they do in the thing. And that's what I really like about it. And you also can see how in the newer seasons compared to like MMPR, for example, they try to hide the snaps and stuff for all the buckles so that it looks less, spandexy versus in more of a, superhero suit. That's the reason why I really like to see behind the scenes, because I always wanted to know how the suit was constructed, because we are just seeing what we see on screen. It's always going to look the best. We never could really see how it's attached. In some cases, I thought like a lot of the buckles, for example, were like sewn directly into the suit to make it a little bit easier to apply versus having it as a separate piece. But I guess specific seasons, they're allowed to swap them. Like in this case, because Brennan explained, they used the toy for the one for the Dino Comp 2 that can open up and take out the Dino Chargers. But then when they have to switch over to fighting, they use this solid piece. So that's probably why they make it, in this case, separate.
This is the thing that I care about. The zipper is not on.
No, this was really cool. I had no idea the Dino Supercharged suit actually had two pieces to itself because, from the show, it looks like it's just one piece. But the gray part with all the hexagonal parts is actually an undershirt that go first, and you put the actual suit on top of it. So that was really interesting to know. And I also noticed his copy of the suit looks like it's probably from the Kyoryuger production because it still has that shine. So this might actually be one of the Japanese suits they may have had because, when they start the production, they have to get a lot of the suit copies from Japan. So either A, they can, get the dimensions and whatnot, or potentially need to use it for some specific shots. And they do use bits and pieces of Japanese suits, so they don't have to always recreate it. Like props, the belt buckles, for example, the helmets, they would be the Japanese versions. In rare cases, do the U.S. team use the Japanese suits? And it was only on a very certain amount of seasons. Dino Thunder is one example where they did keep as much of the Japanese suits as possible. That's why they looked very similar. It was hard to actually see the switch between U.S. and Japanese footage. It's possible this suit was an amalgamation of U.S. and Japanese parts. Or another possibility with this suit is that maybe at the end of production where they were like, we don't want to remake any more suits. Let's pull out the Japanese suit. If it rips, it rips. We're near the end of the show. Or if they're just doing pickup shots where the actors are just doing poses and whatnot, then they could just pull out the Japanese suit and it won't be a big deal.
But here is the actual... just kidding. Here.
Now, if you look closely on the undershirt, you can see these, little hoop pieces. That's what makes the suits stay on the suit very, straight, so it doesn't have wrinkles. It's the way to avoid it. So those hoops will go around the person's hand to keep it straight, and then the gloves will go on top of it. There's a lot of things that go in the inner workings of the suits. That's the reason why, if you ever see the Rangers without their masks on or helmets on, they'll have this white cowl that goes over their head. That's so that makes sure that the collar piece actually stays straight and flush and no wrinkles, just like how in the first season of MMPR their collars were all wrinkled. It's because they were probably not sized correctly and they were probably used for the Japanese crew and they just didn't fit right, and they were all wrinkled because they were not tight enough.
But then here's...
This is another thing that we don't ever get to see because a lot of the details gets obscured, so it's nice to see how everything's attached. You can even see that there was a Velcro part in the front, which makes me believe that the belt buckle that Brennan has with this suit is not the one that came with this costume, because I didn't notice there was a Velcro part on the back of the buckles. So his buckle might have been from a standard Dino Charge suit.
All right, so that's looking at the suit. We're going to get into some of the other items on this box. Where am I going to store this? So this is Daiki, D-A-I-K-I. Typically they write the name of who is wearing the items, but
I also like, thanks to seeing it like this, because usually when they film the suits, they always try to make sure not to showcase any of the imperfections. Like in this case, Brendan will point out that they added the Carnival's upgrade parts to a standard Dino Charge boot, so, and you could see where they didn't want to put the time into to make it actually molded into the rubber. I always wondered how comfortable the boots were because, I mean, you're in the suit for like God knows how long, 8-10 hours, not to mention you're jumping around and it's all sealed up. It probably isn't very fun. Now, maybe if it was like winter time, I think that would become the suit to become a blessing in that regard.
Oh, this is super cool. Actually, kind of, I don't know, this is cool because like I love the suit, and I think at some point maybe I'll get some kind of like, what do you even call it? Like a shadow box to put it in. But this can go on my desk.
If you ever wondered why it takes so many hours to set up a shot for a TV show or a movie, this is a perfect example. A lot of times the props for the weapons for the show are made into a material like resin. It's a plastic that you can, pour in and then they paint it. But the problem is it doesn't look as realistic as it could on camera. So, because Brennan's house is just lit normally, and you could see all hit like these shiny reflections, and then with the reflections you can see the imperfections in the plastic, and it would look really cheap on camera. But like, how does it work so well on the show? That's where the gaffers come in, where they go, okay, we have to hold the gun this way so that the light doesn't hit it this way, and then they have to put in fill lights and all this other stuff. That's why you'll hear like, oh, this 2-second shot took like 2 hours to set up because of things like that. They want the prop to look as best as they could and not catch weird reflections of light. That was the reason why when I said, when we first saw the Cosmic Fury suits, and I said, well, the suits don't look great, but it's because they're taking photographs. And in some cases, the suits did look better on camera, but it still was so bland. So you can't always win against, looking weird. Now, another thing that you may not know about Power Rangers, and even a lot of other productions, is that when we see the weapons, it may not be just one weapon at a time. If a weapon has to transform, in most cases, there's usually like 3 versions of the weapon. For example, let's take the Blade Blaster. We know it's obviously a prop, and it has 3 different modes. The holster mode, gun mode, and then, of course, sword mode. And in most cases, it doesn't actually do all 3 modes simultaneously for a couple of reasons. One, it would be much more expensive to allow the thing to do the transformations. But also, in order for it to function as a weapon to fight, it wouldn't be rigid enough in order to do it. So, like, for example, if you have to transform the Blade Blaster from gun to sword, it has to fold, close, and the sword comes out. Now, this flipping part is cool, but if you're going to do a stunt and you have to do impacts, that blade is going to probably eventually break, or it has to be made very strong where the prop has to be much larger than it should be, and then it will collapse. So you would make multiple different versions of the weapon in its different states. So there will be one version that would be transform only, where it can collapse and close and do all the things, especially when Power Rangers always defies physics where things shrink or get bigger in order to do transformations. One version would be the holster version that is just simply in order to put inside the holster. The other version would be the sword mode. Now, there could be 2 versions of the sword mode. One version would be the hero version that's super detailed. It has the word Kyoryuger on it in, Sentai's case. It has all the details. It has the black outlines. Then there would be a second version of that, which is rubber, so that when they're doing stunts and the camera's fairly far away, they can clash and impact and, fight. And then if they screw up by mistake, they fail a block, they hit stunt person, and they don't get any injuries because it's rubber. That's the reason why in some cases, like the infamous SPD shot where they freeze frame when Jack and Kruger are fight training, and they freeze on the swords impacting, they're using the stunt sword that's not solid, and that's why it bends and looks weird on camera. And there's also another version I forgot to mention. In some cases, Power Rangers will end up using the toy version because either they got lost access to the Japanese prop, which is much more bigger. So, like, notoriously in Space and MMPR, they had the toy version of the toy. Every so often, you'll see it shrink down and look weird. There may be one where they'll have a removable prop, like in the case of the Dino Chargers, where it semi-functions, but you have to make an additional version that allows it to pop in and out.
Oh. Yeah, no idea where I'm storing this. All right.
I just noticed that there's actually a inner vest piece. Now, my theory is that they have to add this little padding because this thing is fairly rigid, and the stunt guys are fighting it. They have to fall on it, and you want to get some sort of padding so that the hard, rubber, plasticky material is not constantly rubbing against your shoulders, your torso, especially if you're falling, down on your face or your stomach. That stuff's going to compress and go right into your gut. I also really love how, it looks because, again, we don't really get a good chance to look at these parts of the suits because we just see it fully assembled. Things may be hiding, how they attach it, how they do it. And also it shows, it's held up pretty well. I mean, this prop is roughly 10 years old at this point, and it's been through a lot of fights and stuff. It still looks pretty good. It shows you how well certain parts of the suits, stand the test of time, and in most cases, it usually falls apart.
This is the beat-up chest armor thing. Now,
You can also see how they use this special, this foam it looks like plastic, but the paint is put on the foam. Because probably in these areas, you wouldn't want to stab your stunt actor in the arm with those teeth, so that had to be rubber. It's kind of the same idea how toys for kids have safety parts so that they're not pointy. So you can also see in this angle that the eyes look like stickers.
Maybe. Is this the open? It's going to take a little more thought. So you open the Velcro. I was like, I have a big head. It's not that big. It's like a large helmet for a motorcycle, but not like custom order large. Oh.
You could see why there's like all those extra things inside, like that little collar piece that goes around the suit performer's neck. That's so that when he's fighting and moving around and punching, this part doesn't go up and down, potentially smack him in the face. Because you have the yellow parts on, for the headpiece, the fins basically, that can easily knock the person in the face and also just look bad on camera.
Dino Supercharge mode, ready! Oh, that is not the Dino Supercharge helmet. That is.
Yeah, this is what made me also believe they were just putting the parts together. You're just going to be like, oh, this is the Red Ranger from this season, and then you're going to grab whatever and then not realize it's the wrong thing. Now, I can't remember if Dino Charge actually had a damaged helmet scene in the show. Second, this is a stunt version helmet only that's for either A, very far away in the background, meaning it's like super far away from camera where they need to be able to see. Because in a lot of cases, the viewing area for these helmets are extremely bad. Time Force 1 is notoriously the worst one because it was colored. They were blind. They had no way. That's why there's like two different versions of the helmet. When they're fighting, it has this kind of like layered look, and then one where it's the solid color. I'm betting this helmet was for stunt work where the suit was facing away from camera. So like the camera would always be behind them. So they'll be fighting and doing kicks and stuff, and the camera would never see the front of this helmet. So that's why it would always face away, and you have no problem, not worrying about punching performers by mistake.
And I don't know what the heck happened to this. They're like, we'll fix it. Let's just give you a little black cloth. Thanks, guys. It looks as good as new. Wow. Yeah, so battle damaged visor for sure.
And you'll also notice that this version of the helmet has the clasps, which in later seasons of PR, they wanted to always hide. They already built them in. So it's kind of awkward if you ever see like behind-the-scenes footage from any of the later seasons past like Kyoryuger. They would be in there and you have to unhook it and it's awkward. Me personally, I would prefer the clasp left outside. I know it's the whole, like, it breaks immersion, it breaks the fantasy. Like, that's like one of the areas where I don't mind because I actually thought it was interesting to showcase the suits being taken off. I missed the days of when MMPR had the helmets come off and on. Having that connection between the actors and the suits was better than being the little fantastical element, like how in Iron Man or in recent Marvel movies they always just have the suits like magically come on from energy or nanotechnology, whatever way they did it.
I'll keep this as been clean. It's probably really small. I can't do this very easily. But yeah, so here's me half morphed.
I also like what was really cool about this version is we could actually see through the visor. You can actually see the eyepiece is pretty big in Dino Charge's case, but there are certain seasons like Zeo, for example. Oh my god, the shapes, especially like Tanya's helmet, it would be so obstructive to the person's eyes. I don't know how they fought in that particular helmet and things like that. It must have been so painful for the stunt team to fight in certain seasons helmets because they have either guardrails and all weird shapes, and sometimes the visors would be higher than where their eyes would be, or super low because of just the way it was shaped. It must have been very, very annoying for certain seasons.
You see, that's the Dino Supercharge mode with the gold spikes on top. So that one's from Anarchy Cosplay. He took some liberties on it. The spikes aren't actually gold, they're supposed to be yellow. And I have an actual Dino Supercharge one that's more accurate. Okay, my forearms either got bigger. I mean, I know this wasn't made for me, or whoever was doubling in it. And I can't even say for sure who, because there were different doubles. Yeah, guys, but that is the unboxing of the Dino Supercharge suit that I won in the auction that finally showed up 50 years later. I know I aged well, thanks to the Energems. Thank you.
Me, personally, I really love the Dino Supercharged suit because it wasn't just because it had like a cool look and, of course, the kind of the goofy nature from Kyoryuger, but I also loved how the designers came up. Let's combine a lot of the older seasons elements into the suit, because like this makes you easily remind you of the Mezzodon Megazord. You know how I had the spikes on the Styracto Zord, and it made Gabutera's design more menacing versus its base form. It's kind of more happier, go lucky, goofy type, more like, it's a T-Rex with tiny little arms. So yeah, Brennan produces a lot of videos that's his personal thoughts on PR from older seasons to his season to newer seasons. Yeah, he also talks about his time on the show, so I highly suggest check out his channel. So we rarely ever get to see how they, put on suits, build the suits. What do we have to do to improve the suits or fix issues from the Japanese version? Because, sometimes when they, come up with in the Super Sentai, there are things that, they didn't find out until while they were filming that, like, maybe we should tell the American team. Stories like that could have happened over time. Or maybe in case, America came up with some interesting ideas that they brought over because, the suits could do this. Well, maybe we can do it better by doing this. I like to know, like, those behind-the-scenes details. So thanks, everyone, for watching. Leave a comment below if you would like me to do more reaction videos like this. And if you have a suggestion or a topic you'd like me to cover, leave a comment down below as well, and I may choose it for next time.